Hello there, Crafty Doer. Jessica Mikels here with the Mixed Media Journal spread, a unique way I like to use texture paste, and the new 49andMarket ink pads and Dennis Bruton's Botanical Buzz collection. So grab a comfy chair, grab all your crafty things, and let's get into the crafty doings. For this journal spread, I will be using my favorite Dylusions Creative Journal Square. I will be using 49andMarket ink pads in cappuccino and salted caramel, smushing them down on my glass working surface, spritzing them with water, as well as spritzing my pages with some water, picking up that diluted ink with a wet paintbrush, and begin doing a little bit of watercoloring on my pages. I'm going to go pretty heavy at first. This with the cappuccino, these are the areas where I envision building layers and clusters. What I'm liking about these ink pads so far is that they work very similar to watercolor, and the colors are gorgeous. To complete this first layer, I'm going to dilute the cappuccino just a little bit more with water and start spreading it out. When I am done, it is very important that I ensure this first layer is completely dry, and I'm going to go ahead and use my Ranger heat drying tool for that. Now that my first layer is dry, I'm going to simply repeat that same process, spritzing my ink that is on my glass working surface and spritzing my pages, picking up that diluted ink with my wet paintbrush and going in with the salted caramel. I ended up doing a little bit of a splattering in both of the cappuccino and salted caramel before drying my journal pages. Now I'm going to do a little bit of stenciling. First, let me get rid of this excess ink so that I can go in with the next gorgeous color in this collection called Daffodil. And I'm going to use Tim Holtz stencil number 11 that has these hexagons, and also Ranger's texture paste transparent gloss. But before I get into that, I'm going to go ahead and use this script stamp, which is by Tim Holtz in his exquisite cling set, and 49andMarket's Off the Rails ink, to add a layer of mixed media to my clusters. What I like to do when I use this technique is to ink the cling stamp, and when I go in and stamp it, I kind of just do like a roll instead of a flat stamp. Then I like to go back in there and use the edges to kind of do a second generation print, and this makes it look a little bit more grungy. So I'm going to grab the texture paste transparent gloss and add it to my Daffodil smooshed ink on my glass working surface. I like to use transparent gloss when I pick up inks because it is closer to the ink color versus using like an opaque texture paste. And I'm simply going to start adding the stencil to my clusters. And I'm going to try to do it on top of the clusters, or sometimes just slightly away from it. going to show you the unique way that I like to use this transparent glass texture paste. And it is simply just overheating the glass before it completely dries. It starts to bubble, and I feel like this was such a great technique for this specific spread because I want the hexagons to come off like honeycombs. And this is why when I am done overheating and bubbling the texture paste, ensuring that I don't overheat the paper because I don't want to start a fire, I'm gonna go ahead and go in with some more salted caramel right on top of the honeycombs. This makes it look to me like it's dripping with just rich honey. For yet another layer of mixed media, I'm going to use that same stencil, but this time I'm going to ink blend some daffodil. I'm going to try to focus on areas where there isn't a lot of mixed media so that the hexagons look like they're kind of fading in and out of the background. So I've reached a moment in my creative process where I'm really not liking how, I don't know, heavy the salted caramel is looking in these areas. So I'm going to dilute the rest of the ink that I have on my glass working surface, mostly grab some water with my paintbrush and start moving that ink around on my pages. Once again, this ink reacts so beautifully with water, almost like watercolors. This is a paper from the 6x8 that I went ahead and fussy cut to look like kind of like a postcard. I distressed the edges and then added some cappuccino to the edges. Cappuccino has become quite a staple in my craft room for that grungy look. And I'm going to use some score tape to adhere this to the center of my journaling page, which now has become the focal point for my spread. Next, I'm going to use some washi tape. And the way I like to use this so that it still has that distress / grunge look is by tearing the edges of the washi tape so that it doesn't have that straight line. And I'm going to add this to both sides of this postcard to give the spread a linear element. Next, I'm going to go in with these amazing rub-ons. I've selected black to accent the warm colors that I have going on. These are so easy to rub on. If it's been a while since you've used rub-ons, I highly encourage you to grab some from 49andMarket. Next, I'm going to go into the laser cut elements, and I thought these little honey bee houses were so adorable. And I'm going to ink blend cappuccino to the edges and begin layering and building my clusters. This collection also comes with puffy stickers. And in order to build on my linear element, I'm gonna grab these swirls and add them right on top. For more black accent, which I think helps bring all of it together, I'm also adding some of these hexagons to the clusters. Now I'm going to go back into the laser cut elements and grab some florals and branches and leaves and add them to the corners of the postcard. Back to the puffy sticker sheet to grab this dripping honey element. Ink blended it with cappuccino so that it is cohesive with the rest of the elements on the page. And rub-ons have these really cool text options. And again, they're so easy to apply. Eventually, I end up at one point just rubbing them on with my finger. I decided that I wanted to add a little bit more of this script onto the postcard, but this time instead of the off the rails black color, I'm going to go in with the cappuccino. And I'm going to use that technique that I talked about earlier by just rolling the stamp on so that you don't get a dark flat stamped image. This collection also comes with a ton of word chips. I selected this shine text and inked up the edges once again with cappuccino as well as my journal pages. One of the last things I'm going to do to my spread is use Dina Wakley's gloss spray in white by simply just tapping the nozzle on top of my clusters. And I decided at the very end that I wanted to add a little bit more of this gorgeous green to my clusters because it helps bring out the green in the swirls, the washi tape, and in the branches and florals at the corners of the postcard. I absolutely love the new 49andMarket ink pads. I think one of my favorite things is that they match perfectly with their paper collections. I love that they're water reactive and they paint beautifully just like watercolor. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hoped that you learned a thing or two. If you did, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Until the next crafty doings.